Welcome, everyone, to Accuracy in America. Haven't seen you for a couple of days, but hopefully you haven't missed me too much. All right, in the news. So the big news, I think, really dominating is not necessarily all directly political, but it is about this action on Wall Street that is going on with just the absolutely incredible short squeeze on the stock market on GameStop stock, and that has also bled over targets of AMC, the movie chain, BlackBerry, which used to be known for its ubiquitous phones with the keypads many, many years ago. Bed Bath and Beyond, a retailer that is just treading water and closing stores all over the country. And so there's a lot of these stocks that have been shorted. That is where hedge funds and other big investors, they borrow shares from an investor for a small fee, and then hoping that the shares actually will go down. They sell the shares, and then when it's time, they figure that when the shares go down, they will then buy the shares back and replace the shares that they borrowed, and they keep the difference. Well, hedge funds are getting a huge comeuppance right now, in particular, because thanks to Reddit forums, Redditors have actually waged really, what in essence is an assault on the stock market and on these big hedge funds who have massive short positions. I mean, GameStop had 102% short position. That's huge. So when the stock started rising, some of these guys had to start replacing the shares that they borrowed before the price got out of control. When the stock, which was $18 or thereabouts at the beginning of the year, and only about 3.5 back in August, goes to $347 in a very short period of time. If you're short that stock and you've got a lot of it, you're going to get killed, absolutely killed. The other side of it is that if you bought at 18 and you sold at 347, you're doing great. The stock is up like, what is it, another 60, 70, 80% today. And just, it's been, there was the Robinhood, the ubiquitous app that has become the go-to for stock trading for Generation X, I guess it is, millennials, whatever. They halted trading. They've actually said no trading yesterday in these stocks because of things were getting too volatile. They've come under a lot of criticism. There have been some lawsuits have been filed and whatnot. I'm not sure when we will get to that normalcy level with this group of stocks. But anything with large short positions is game for these guys to go in there, buy the stock, push up the demand, forcing the shorts to cover, which then fuels further increases in the stock, and whammo. What was it about GameStop? GameStop is basically, they're almost a zombie retailer. They're just barely making it. Who buys a game at GameStop? And GameStop, why would GameStop even want to buy a physical game? People are downloading their games, right? But the founder of Chewy, who sold his enterprise off for a lot of money, joined the board and actually started accumulating shares of the stock. He's looking, urging change. So that gave people, that's kind of really the real reason that the stock went from the threes to the mid-teens. But it is not the reason that it has gone from 18 to $350. Okay, that's not him. It has nothing to do with this guy at all. This is a massive, short squeeze. And, unlike others, there have been short squeezes throughout the history of Wall Street, but nothing really like this, because it is a sustained short squeeze. And it's not just one stock. It is multiple stocks, right? If you own AMC, and you saw that plummet, but you took advantage of its share price because of the pandemic, you might have actually done fairly well. It was up like 40% today. It's still a very small stock, selling in the neighborhood of $10 a share or thereabouts. But it's just, if you think you're going to go in here, particularly to GameStop, and make money, you better be watching out here, because this is going to be a very tricky ride to actually do anything with these stocks. This is not for long-term investors. Day traders who know their stuff probably will do okay, but this is not something where you just jump in to buy the stock and then hope that you're going to get rich off of doing that. That's not the way this. I am the buy and hold guy, and I don't know how much money I've probably left on the table by not investing in GameStop earlier, but I'm certainly not touching it at 350 or in that neighborhood at this point in time, because we know this will end and will end badly for a lot of people, notwithstanding the hedge funds who the Redditors have just waged an all-out assault on. It's put the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen in a little bit of a spot, because she had received something like $800,000 in speaking fees from people behind, some of this GameStop action and all of these kinds of things, that companies that are associated with the trading platforms, et cetera. So, she hasn't recused herself from this, but the Biden administration is trying to figure out what's going on here, and it's a massive distraction for them and their agenda at this point. But we will see. It's made like this for several more days. But at first I didn't even know what the heck was going on. I just happened to check the charts one day. I was like, why the heck is BlackBerry going up? Why the heck is Bed Bath and Beyond going up? Those things, the plays in those have seemed to settle down to a certain extent. The focus really is on GameStop and on AMC. All right, nursing home deaths in New York. So now there's a report that says that the nursing home deaths reported by New York City were actually below the mark by 50%. That's 50% higher. If you remember, Governor Cuomo, basically, I mean, he ordered people into nursing homes as part of the preventative measure on the pandemic initially. But what all that did was that put a lot of old people into nursing homes where the viruses were actually more susceptible, were raging on, and a lot of people died. And so now these numbers are even higher than first reported. This is not making, Cuomo and company look any better in New York. New York has struggled a lot with the coronavirus, with COVID-19, and actually trying to manage this in any reasonable way, shape, or form. And so they have fallen flat on their face on this, and it's really too bad. Tragically, a lot of people unnecessarily lost their lives as a result of the policies that were enacted at the time. You remember that guy with the whole horns and the whole crazy thing with the Capitol Hill riot, the QAnon Shaman? Okay, well, he's back in the news because he is volunteering to testify at Donald Trump's impeachment trial against Donald Trump. He feels betrayed, so he's going to take out his vengeance against Trump. Now, realistically, okay, do you think the Democrats are actually going to allow this guy onto the floor, and actually put him into a place where he can testify? Or I'd say, I guess if they do it remotely, which is probably how a lot of this is going to be done, will they testify remotely that he's going to be allowed to do that? I don't think so. Even myself, who knows that the Democrats are just playing a game here on the impeachment trial, and it's one that they're going to lose in the long run. It would serve them no purpose to put this guy out there at all. I mean, that would make it a circus for sure. But it's funny, it's like kind of you have to think about the flip side of this. Is this guy volunteering to do it because does he really feel that he's been betrayed by Trump? Or is he trying to do it to put some pressure on the Democrats to turn this into a circus? In this day and age, no one can really tell anymore about what the intent is of some of these people. So we will wait and see. There's a proposal now that fencing around the Capitol be made permanent. Okay, so all I'm thinking about is like, you remember those, those military green zones and stuff like that overseas, and we're at Baghdad and Afghanistan and things like that. This is what it's beginning to resemble in my mind, is that you'll have all this fencing and all these crazy perimeters set up to get through. We had a lot of barriers and things erected, in and around the Capitol after 9/11, and rightfully so. We're not in that same situation today, though. Are there other threats? There's always going to be a potential for some other threat, I guess. But do we want to turn the nation's capital? Do we want to turn the Capitol Hill area into what will look like nothing more than another war zone, where you're going to have all these checkpoints to get through? And this is one of the things about our country. We are a country where we roam the country generally freely. You don't have to worry about, border checks at every state border lot, and everything like that. We do move around very freely, and that's one of the great beauties of this country. However, getting to Capitol Hill, that I can just see that debate. And then so what else happens? I don't know what the situation was at, say, the metro stations. Do you shut down the metro stations, or you have checkpoints at the metro stations there as well as people get off the metro and come up, come up the escalators and stuff like that? You want to find a way to kill tourism, when it does finally come back. No, this will be a way to do it. I mean, the beauty, of Capitol Hill will be destroyed, or, in one fell swoop, with all of this military type of fencing and all of this kind of thing. I just don't think the danger is as big a threat as Pelosi and company think it is. And then finally, John Kerry. So John Kerry, stated the other day about talking about, trying to, because he's kind of like now the climate guy, right? The climate czar for Biden. And so one of the big problems with the Biden administration is that they right off the bat, they killed the Keystone XL pipeline. And, they've also said there will be no more new leases on federal land for gas. And this has a deleterious effect. I mean, there's going to be a lot of jobs lost, not just on the pipeline, but there's also revenue lost by the states who were sharing in the lease revenue on these government property, right, that were in their states. But Kerry seems to have it in his mind, or at least muddled in his mind, that the pipeline workers can easily just transition to solar and wind jobs. But there are something in the neighborhood of like 50,000 jobs, involved in this whole thing for the pipeline and stuff like this. Green jobs grow at a very slow rate, just based on the statistics by those that are gathering them, a few thousand jobs a year. There may be some openings now, and you may be able to fill up to 10,000 of them now if you can transition these people, but there's a different skill set too. You've got to train them. And then how many years will it take to get to the other 40,000? It could take another 10 years plus to do that. That's not the solution, right? The green energy jobs pay less than the fossil fuel jobs, right? If you work on a pipeline, you work on an oil rig, you can make some pretty darn good money, particularly if you do overtime, things like that. Solar installer, it's not the same type of a thing. There isn't a lot of money, for the worker in the solar industry in the long run. You can earn maybe $50,000 a year, which is fine, but it's not the 80, 90, 100, $150,000 a lot of these guys were making working in the fossil fuel industry. So, that would be a huge hit for a lot of people, and that also results in a huge hit for the economy. But that doesn't seem to be the problem. It doesn't seem to be a problem for the Biden administration. And I also want to ask a question here too about this whole movement by GM and other car manufacturers to go all electric. GM wants to do this by 2035. Exactly where are we going to get all the electrical power to be able to handle and charge all these cars that'll be sold theoretically going forward? If we only have electric vehicles, on the roads eventually. So we're talking, 2035, it's 2021. So in 14 years, they want to be an all electric fleet and everything like that, right? You're still going to have gas-powered vehicles on the road for a while there, but at some point in time, you're going to get to a stage where, there will be more and more electric vehicles than fossil fuel, gas-powered vehicles. But where's electricity coming from? Solar energy, wind energy. They are not going to be able to generate enough energy, enough electricity to power these cars. Elon Musk has said so. He has already said that, but he continues to sell electric cars nevertheless because it works for him and makes him rich. There'll be a day of reckoning, but I guess for politicians and for people who make these decisions, they figure that day of reckoning will come long after it will affect them, or that they will no longer be here on this earth to deal with it. So anyway, interesting things happening out there. Thanks a lot for joining me today. Remember, stay safe, stay well. We live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. God bless America. Have a wonderful weekend wherever you are. We're expecting some snow here in the DMV potentially, so it could be an interesting weekend for us starting on Sunday, but we'll weather through it. It's not 10 feet. It's a few inches, I think, but people are panicking already. All right. See you around. Have a great weekend. See you around probably on Monday.